Now then, right, it's hot out there, so time to come in the workshop in the cool. I've been doing some tidying up, and I picked this Numatic Henry up about, must have been 2 months ago, and it's getting in the way, and I want to know whether it's got any serviceable parts or not. But one interesting thing is, this is an early Numatic that we've had since, I don't know, the late 80s probably, and it's been used in the workshop as dust extraction with a belt sander and stuff like that. And of course, one of the problems, let's just move things around, the problem with this one is it's got no cord. Somebody's cut it off, or the plugs come off and it's wound inside, so we need to investigate this. And Owen from Boots Owen has got quite a few videos on these Henrys, so it's worth watching those, and I'll put a link in the description to his channel, but we've all been there already. So some interesting stuff, and of course he's doing a lot of solar now, which is great. So we'll put that out of the way. Now this one, as I say, late 80s. One of the problems with these is you leave them in the workshop over winter, they become a mouse starter home. So that's what happens. Yeah, and hence I've got this bit of cotton there as a supplementary filter. But one of the things I was curious about was now, bearing in mind this one, I'm assuming it's a HVR 2000/22. I'm not actually sure what date it is, but let's just assume that this is less than 5 years old. So we've got 5 years old, 40 years old nearly. Does this filter fit there? It does. That's amazing, isn't it? They haven't changed the size, even though this is steel and this is plastic. Brilliant, brilliant. That's what we like to see. So worst case scenario, I can use this filter in this one and resign this lot to the spares department. But I want to see whether I can get that other one going. Not because I need it, but the spirit of adventure and really wild things. So let's crack on with that. So just whilst I'm putting things away, notice that the early Henry has got these very robust clips, steel over centre clips, whereas the more modern one has got these slidey things, which these little plastic tabs here, you know what's going to happen with those. Over time they'll bend and break. So down to a price, not up to a standard. But let's crack on with this anyway. So in Owen's videos, apparently one of the common faults is this high-low switch. They just pack up apparently. So that may have been the problem, and then they've just cut the wire off, or as I say, the plug might have come off, the wire might have got chopped, and it's just spun back in there. We shall see. So now we've got some posi screws to undo all the way around here. I think we just need to undo those 4 outside ones, but there are 3 in the middle. So let's just I'll undo them all and get back to you. Right, that's those lot undone. And they have a thing called a carousel here with some brushes, and there's some grease on there, so I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Has somebody been in here already? And there's this twiddly bit, which is the cable guide. So, not sure what else happens now, apart from, oh, we did mention that the screws fall out and you lose them, but I've got all four. So, yeah, it's very greasy. And I assume that is not standard pneumatic, that amount of grease. Let's just zoom in on that. See that amount of grease there? Yeah, that doesn't look... And these, they're the contacts. I mean, it could be simply that it's too much grease and it's acting as an insulator. So I think I'm going to wipe some of that grease off and then just apply 240 volts across there and see if something happens. And of course the other thing is to take the carousel apart, the wire carousel, and see what's happening in there. So let's crack on. So we just wipe that off, and then let's just have these 3 screws out here. Thank goodness we haven't as yet come across a security screw. A security screw just to secure the CEO's vast profits and bonuses and all that sort of scummy sort of stuff. Right, well, the wire was just chopped. Okay. Interesting. I'm assuming there ought to be a spring in there, but maybe there isn't. Maybe it just winds up. So we can replace this and put it back together. I think probably let's just use our brain for a bit, because we've got one, apparently. I'm sort of thinking this grease is... somebody's been in here and greased it far too much. So let's grab the meter and stick it on ohms. Yeah. And that should be on, so therefore between there and there, stick it on continuity. Well, we've got nothing at all. So before we start putting cable on it, I think we need to see if we can get to these switches. Now again, in one of Owen's videos, just there, you just lift that tab out and that tab out there, and you can get to the back of the switches, which is a very useful bit of information. Otherwise you could end up digging deeply into stuff. There are the motor wires. Okay, can we see that? I think we can. The two wires going down to the motor, and they're there and there. So let's just get a block of wood, the ubiquitous block of wood, and we want to go from there to there. We're not getting anything. What have we got there? We've got a third wire. Alright, that white wire, I think, is that one. We're not getting anything at all. So it could be we've got a motor fault. Let's just see if this switch works. Well, even that doesn't look like it wants to work. Will that slide out sideways? I think it might do. It's got some little retaining. How's your father's there? Okay. These wires are only just long enough. Now I'm assuming that those wires come from here. Yeah. So those wires happen. So then when that is on the on position, I assume that that goes to there. It does. And that doesn't go to there, which it should do, I think. So I think we've got a faulty switch there, and it'll be a double rocker, and one of them is bad. Okay, let's try and have this other switch out. Again, yeah, hardly enough cable to get the switches out. Okay. And we've got that one goes to one of them, and I'll have to have a look at Owen's video. Oh, that white one goes down to there. Is that white? It's a white colour, and we've got a blue and a brown and a white. So I'm assuming that the white will be a tapping in the motor. The different speed. We're really not getting any reading whatsoever. Makes you suspect a motor problem. And this switch here, let's see if we got any joy with this. put it back on continuity. So nothing. Nothing. On high. We've got no continuity through this switch at all, so it seems. That's very bizarre. Or perhaps it's not, just cheap and nasty switches. So I couldn't get anything in any position on this. So it may be that all I've gained is a filter. I think we really ought to just have a look and see if we can get this. So I think that switch is duff, and I think the power switch, wherever it is, here is duff. Yeah. And we need to have a look at the motor now. And I'm not quite sure how we get there, so just give me a minute to work that one out. Okay, so those 3 screws there, yeah, undo those, and then this whole assembly lifts off. And there is the motor. And I'm assuming that motor just pulls out. There it goes. Okay. Is there any, yeah, lift that out with that rubber at the bottom and that exhaust dust filter. So let's just remove those. Now I'm just looking at the armature and I'm looking at the brushes, so let's just go between. Right, where's the brush connection there? Switch that back on. So that brush between commutator and the connector is alright, and the connector is down there to the commutator. That's alright. And I cannot see, let's just zoom down on this. I cannot see any sign of burning. The only thing we've got there is a fuse of some form, yeah, and if it's been overheated it might very well be that let's just try and get to the connection there. Oh no, it's fine. So I just went to that red wire there from there, so if that fusible link or that heat sensitive switch was faulty, then we wouldn't have got continuity to that red wire. Do you know what? The only thing to do is stick some power into it and see what happens. There's no date stamp on this. Lam Electric, division of Amitech. Alright, we've got a date here, 11th of the 4th 06. So it's not that new, and it spins alright. Right, let's stick some power in it, shall we? Okay, we've got it clamped down, and in deference to YouTube and my viewers, I've actually put some spade connectors on the end of this. Actually, what I'll do, you just plug that in and then switch on the extension lead. So as you can see, I had the motor clamped down for good reason, and that's an alright motor. So we just need to work backwards from that position to a point where we'll find a break in a wire somewhere maybe. Okay, so we know the motor's alright, so perhaps it's the wiring somewhere. So we got the input there from these two, from the carousel. Doesn't matter which way round they go. Then we've got this brown one which actually links there and goes over here, and we have a blue one that comes from there, and we have this white one. Okay, so let us just have to be very careful here. We have one white wire there which comes directly from the on switch. Okay, good. And then we have another white wire here, those go to the brushes, which comes from there. So right, where does this blue one go and where does that brown one go, and do we need them? Okay, let's have a spin around, and it goes to a board. Okay, and that, I'm assuming, is the speed controller. Well, do we really need half speed and full speed for a workshop vac? I don't think so. So I think that board can go walkabout, and we can rewire this so that that white one there, which is a brush wire, is connected directly to there, and we can take that board out. Hopefully that makes sense. So luckily this thing here is a joiner, so if I take that off there, then that board can disappear and put that white one back on there. And I'm going to do that off camera because it's just fiddly. Right, so we've got the two connections going to the brushes, those white wires, and there are two like studs or something sticking down from the motor, and they fit into there and there. There's little housings for them, so it's all quite locked into place, and we just need to get those lined up. That's it, there we go. Then we've got the two white wires coming out of here. Right, that's brilliant. Then we have this dust filter which I've blown out, and then we've got this thing, and that piece there goes where the wires stick out. There's a little recess in there which takes that flat bit there. So all you do is just squeeze the filter and put it down like that, and these bits here sit over the screw mounting bosses. Okay, and then that goes on there like that. Yep. And then on top of this we have this thing, and there's there and there. So that one there being on its own effectively goes that way. So we just try and line everything up. There we go. And we've got the screws to go in there. So I'm just putting those screws in. Useful to have a magnetic screwdriver for this, but not, oh that's good, if it gets stuck down there. So I'll tighten them up by hand, because I don't want to damage the threads. Now, have we got everything? I don't think we have. No, we've missed something, and it's these. So let's just take those out again. Have we got everything? There's one in there. So let's just ease that off again. Oh yeah. These go on there like that. And there are two, I've got the screws sticking in those holes, but there are two little pins there, and that goes like that. And there should be another one here. So you've got to remember to put those in place before you put it all back together, or else you will be cursing yourself, because you can't put them in afterwards. Okay, let me just tighten this lot up and I'll get back to you. Right, so the outside screws, I put them in there, but actually they screw all the way through and into these housings here. So you can't tighten them up until you put the top on, and then we can't do that until we've sorted the switch out and the carousel. So we'll just hope that they don't fall out. But let's flip this over now, and we're going to have to look at this switch. Okay, so I've connected the brushes straight to this now, and that just wants a bit of tape around it as an insulator. But let us zoom in and have a look at this switch, because it's obviously got a faulty contact in it, and apparently this is the bane of these Henrys, whereas the switch on the original 86 model, the steel framed one, it's never given any bother, and it's had a lot of hard work. So these switches are really appalling, and the company ought to be well and truly ashamed of themselves. Okay, so I think we need to get in there like that and just ease that like that. Okay, and then we'll take the rocker out. Okay, and on there, where are we? There we go. There's two little sprung loaded. Well, they're still working. That's good. Let's just zoom out just a little bit. I think we're a bit too close in. Then we have that. I need some stronger glasses to look at this lot. Okay, and then we've got two rockers and two contacts. See, there's a rocker there, and there's another one. Yeah. So nothing seems to be too bad at the moment. Yeah. Okay, let's just see what happens. We hook that one out. and we'll hook this one out. And so what we got there is the rocker makes a contact on there, and there's a contact and there's a contact, and these are the other ones here which you can't really get to. So the only thing I can do there is clean those up a bit. I can't really clean these up, but I can probably try and bend them down a bit. So I'm just going to run some old sander belt across those contact faces. You could probably see, look in here, those are twisted. They're twisted so they hold them in place. Can you see that? Where are we? Let me just go. Yeah, they're twisted. So if I untwist those, I can take those contacts out and clean them up. Whoopee! I think I'm going to have to use the snipe nose pliers here. And we'll just twist those. You've got to be in line. There we go. There we go. Bit tricky filming this. So there's the components of the switch. Let's turn these over. And they don't look that bad. Oh, you can't see. Right, let's just see if I can bring this up to the camera. You see, they don't look that bad. So I'm going to clean all these up and then put it back together and see what happens. I've decided to try a small file because it's probably a bit easier. So hold that with the pliers. Wow, that's appalling. Those contacts are so soft. Soft as a marketer's conscience. They're really not what you would call good at all. Yeah, it takes nothing to file those down. So another bad mark. Okay, so then that right angle there, I'm just going to put that in the vise, and I'm going to tap those down just slightly, just to make a count of any wear on those contacts. I'll be back to you in a moment. Okay, that's those bent slightly. And so that goes back in there, and that goes back in there, and then we bend those. That holds them in, and then that goes in there, except it's in the wrong place. That contact has got to go underneath the other one. That's it, it's in the right place now. So it does that. It actually touches. I'm just wondering if these have been bent a bit. let's have that one out and just bend it a bit. Yeah, they're very soft, really appallingly soft. Okay, right, then this went in there like that, and then this goes back in there. So if I was to push that way, that would be on. That would be on that way, and that would be off that way. Okay. Right. Hopefully I've got that the right way round. If I haven't, I'll have to adjust it. Yeah. Whee! And off. There you go. Right, that's that switch fixed and hopefully improved slightly. Good. So we've rewired it. We've fixed the switch, so we can put the switch back together, and then the next thing to do is to put a mains cable to the carousel and screw it back together, and I think we're there. But that was an interesting experiment. You've got to look at what it does and then imagine that, well, and you notice the materials it's made out of, so you need to adjust them. Let's just have a look at this other one whilst we're here, because this is the one where we were getting no joy whatsoever. There we go. Oh! Yeah, not too bad. That's fixable. In fact, I'll put that back together. I'll fix it, put it back together, and then keep it as a spare. But hopefully I won't need it. Especially if I had an old-fashioned one, I wouldn't be needing it. I know one of the videos that Owen did, it's one of the, obviously the contact had been sparking and it actually heated up and melted this bit. So then there was no way that the contacts would go back together. And we're talking AC here, so you do get sparks, but you know, very rarely do you get welding together. So I'm going to put that to one side and repair that before I put it back together. Right. So there you go. I've replaced the mains cable. Yeah, simply enough. Undo the screws, tuck the wires in, make sure they're neatly twisted together and make sure they're well in there. And then if you notice, we've got a suppression capacitor there, probably for these contacts and for the brushes in the motor, and it's got a small resistor across it just to flatten the capacitor to make sure when you switch it off it just dies. So that'll do. Then this needs to go back in the machine, so let us zoom out. So we have, there's the machine, and the contacts look clean enough. So now we have this goes there, and somewhere, here we go. Do you know what I've forgotten to do? I've forgotten to fit that, and it fits in there like that. So I'm going to have to take those wires off again and fit that. And Owen did warn about that, but I totally forgot about it. So I'll get back to you in a minute. Right, I've got that in place. I'm assuming it's the right way up. Doesn't look like there's a choice. We've got that there, so Yeah. Now we've got these 3 screws in the top, which go into there. Okay. So that goes like that, and then this goes somehow. Now then, that's a very good question. Which way does this go? So I can't remember how this went back together. There are 3 screws there, and there are 3 screw bosses there, and I'm not quite sure how. And there are 2 little bosses there that seem like there might be a locating boss or something, but nothing seems to be. There's a little arrow there opposite one of those, so let's just see if that goes like that. Well, that seems to do it. Is that screwed in place? No, it hasn't. Will it screw in place? Seems like it. There might be a bit of a trick to getting this in the right place. Anyway, so that seems to be there. Okay, so bring this back, and that just goes in there like that. Where's the top go? Ah! It doesn't go in there, it goes in there. Right. Okay. Okay, that's me just being ahead of myself. It might even go that way. There we go. Right. So before we do any further, we need to put this switch cover on. So now, there we go, and the switch can go in. Yeah, and that goes there, and then this goes over the top with right. Now, is that the wrong way up? I suspect it might be. Nope, that doesn't look right. Well, I don't think there's much in it. I must admit, it's a truly fiddly bit of fiddlesome. There we go. So now, after all that nonsense, we can tighten these screws up. And I'm assuming, because everything else lines up, these screws will line up. And I'll just tighten those up, and they are tightening up. And I'll be back to you in a moment. So that is it all back together. And that fiddling guard goes on the outside and up against that. So it is sideways rather than upright, and it's not on the inner cover, it's on the outer cover. That got me well confused. So, moment of truth. So there you go, fixed. Got rid of the 2-speed arrangement, which was just modern marketing nonsense, and put put a new cord on it. Well, not a new cord, a second-hand cord off a hedge trimmer, I think, or a leaf blower or something like that, that came my way, that was next to a skip, and we fixed the switch. So I think I'll do a separate little video about fixing these switches, because as long as you can, if you get to them before you've done major damage, once they first start arcing, don't keep using them, have it apart and clean it up and bend the appropriate bits. It'll be a lot better. But those switch contacts are made out of the next thing near like jam. They really are appallingly soft. But so we have old Numatic, perfect, made out of steel with a good switch, done years of service. We have more modern one with designer nonsense and poor materials, but besides that you can fix them and it's not that difficult. You watch a video and you can go through the stages of fixing it. Yeah. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. Lots of comment and discussion, and I will catch up with you soon. Cheers for now.